Kingdom Come Deliverance 2's highly anticipated March patch finally arrived a few days ago with a 55GB update on PS5, and with over 1,000 fixes and improvements to the game, there is a lot to unpack here. I'm going to start by highlighting some of the most significant changes and fixes and then go into a bit more detail on some of the other patch notes. Let's start off though by just quickly saying that yes, patch 1.2 does appear to fix the audio stuttering issues on PlayStation that had literally been going on since launch. I know that myself and quite a few others had significant audio problems with just constant audio glitching on PS5, and when I booted the game back up after installing patch 1.2, I didn't hear a single audio issue in that regard. But I will say, as a testament to this game, that I have literally made it almost through the entire game now, even with the egregious audio problems, which just shows how much fun this game actually is. The big new addition with this March patch though is the barber feature, which is considered as the first of a few free DLCs.
A cut and a shave, please.
This is the only content that is listed under the new category in the patch notes as well, meaning that everything else included within this update is fixing, changing, or balancing existing features. But the barber feature is the one new thing. In relation to this, the patch notes state, introduce the barber feature, check it out in Jeliov and Kuttenberg, and that's it. But I really like that a lot of games are doing things like this. Last year's Stellar Blade, for example, which I know is a totally different genre, also had a barber feature, but I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what hairstyles are available for Henry, and I'm wondering if the options differ at all between Jeliov and Kuttenberg, because that would be kind of neat and would also add to the realism and immersion that the game already has to offer. Now, this patch does have a bit of controversy surrounding it though, because some of the patch notes here seem to make things slightly easier for players, at least that's how I read it. For instance, the lockpicking difficulty in Trotsky has been noticeably reduced, skilled teacher prices have been reduced, which, to be honest, that one probably needed to be done, because for the first 10 to 20 hours of the game, when you barely have a groschen to your name in the Trotsky region, it was nearly impossible, or at least unadvisable, to pay any of the skilled teachers. Some bandit camps also received improved loot, and herbs sell for more now. Pole arms have been rebalanced to be more powerful, and honestly, there appears to be a lot of rebalancing that was done on multiple fronts, from store prices, loot opportunities, and even the mini games like locksmithing and blacksmithing. I'm curious though what people think about these changes, because at least from my perspective, I didn't really consider the need for rebalancing until now, but at the same time, if it improves the quality of the game, then I'm all for it. Beyond rebalancing then, there were also a metric ton of bug fixes across basically every quest in this game, and I'm not going to go through quest bug fixes today because again there were just so many listed out here on the patch notes, but I will say that the Kuttenberg tournament is one quest that appears to have some of the most patch notes out of everything in this update. So hopefully that quest is officially fixed at this point, because I know there were just so many problems with it before. I haven't personally checked out the Kuttenberg tournament since the update though, so if anyone else has been playing around with the Kuttenberg tournament questline, let us know down in the comments what your experience has been with that and if things appear to be better now. Of course, beyond the highlights that I mentioned here with the audio fixes, the barber feature, the rebalancing across the board, and the quest bug fixes, there are literally so many patch notes here, so I'm going to go through each of the sections outlined by Warhorse in the patch notes, and I'm going to quickly sum up what has been updated without reading every single line, and also while accentuating the most memorable parts of the update overall. Now, again, the first category in the patch notes was the new category, which the only item in that was the barber feature that we already talked about. The second category, though, is the features category, which includes achievements, alchemy, animals, archery range, balancing, blacksmithing, carts, combat, crime, and a heck of a lot more. This is basically all of the systems at play in the game. So, starting under achievements, apparently some players were able to pop certain achievements before without ever actually having earned them, and this issue has been fixed. Under alchemy, we received improved resolution for fire, which is actually one thing that I had wondered about before, and there were some other lighting and localization issues that were fixed as well. In relation to animals, it looks like the AI got some improvements here, noting that random movements of animals have been fixed, and dying animations for certain animals now have ragdoll effects. So I'm definitely going to have to try that out on the sheep farm that is earlier in the game in the Trotsky region. In terms of archery, we just got a few fixes in relation to archery competitions and equipment loadouts, but then we have the balancing category, which literally rebalances a ton of different features within the game, some of which I highlighted at the beginning of this video, but honestly, this is kind of interesting to me because, again, I didn't necessarily think that the game needed much rebalancing, but we got some important fixes here, like rebalancing how quickly food goes bad over time, which I will admit I did die from food poisoning at least a few times early in the game because eating food that went bad so quickly, which I have to say is like the saddest death when you don't have the digestive medicine that you need and the clock is just ticking on your character's life. Other rebalancing changes included everything from prices of goods to stats and weights of items as well. Next, the blacksmithing minigame has been rebalanced and various minor blacksmithing issues have been fixed. In relation to carts, apparently there was an issue where players would just randomly die after dismounting a cart, which is kind of hilarious, but that issue has been fixed. I can say though that I did not have that issue, but that definitely would have driven me up the wall. In relation to the combat category, we have literal pages of notes here. One of the most important notes listed though is that being hit will no longer interrupt the player drawing a weapon. I did have this happen a few times during battles and it was incredibly annoying. We also got quite a few animation adjustments, fixes to camera problems during combat, and even adding in some missing sound clips at certain combat points. So the combat has been updated and refined even more. We also got quite a bit though from the crime category. One specific update was that NPCs are now less precise in where they're going to look when investigating a sound heard from far away, which I do appreciate, because there were a few times when I was sneaking around and stealing from chests and a guard from the other side of town inexplicably zeroed in on the exact spot where I was. Another big one here was a fix that makes sure the recognition rabbit icon no longer gets stuck in different scenarios, which is kind of important. NPC reactions to crimes have also been updated across the board as well. In the cutscenes category, we now have equipped arrows and bolts showing on the player even during said cutscenes, which is a nice addition. General synchronization issues have also been fixed, which I will say I did have some issues with cutscenes at the very beginning of the game, which at the time made me a little bit nervous because I thought the entire game might be like that, but surprisingly that is the only time that I ever had cutscene issues, though at the time with the stuttering audio and the glitching cutscenes it was definitely not great. In the daily life category, NPC issues have been fixed across basically every city, though I will note that after this patch update went live, I actually got a new issue in Takov in Trotsky. That is the area where the blacksmith is at the beginning of the game, but an NPC shut the door to the room where the player's bed is in Takov, and now that door appears to be shut forever for me because no matter what I do, I am now unable to use the bed in Takov, which honestly kind of sucks. So I hope that gets fixed in later updates. There have been some fixes in relation to dice as well, and the game has added more money to some dice players, which I like the option of having a little bit higher stakes. The environment of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 has likewise received some general improvements with better lighting in towns and an improved look of Trotsky from afar, and I do have to note a few funny ones here in relation to the environment fixes from the patch notes. For example, they quote, fixed a bad-looking house corner in Gutenberg, whatever that means, and they fixed, quote, raining inside of a barn in Jeliov, which I can actually say I remember getting that bug, so this is good. For fast travel, they added a much-needed fast travel point to Bojana's hut, which, again, thank God, because when I start a new playthrough of KCD2, that will absolutely come in handy at the beginning of the game when traveling back and forth from Bojana's hut to other places in the world. For horse riding, there is improved road magnetism, which just means that the horse will stay more in line with the road. There were also some minor fixes with horse trading. For characters, though, they improved Ron Burgau's face, like that's literally what the patch notes say. And this is a weird one, but they, quote, improved textures of women's bodies, whatever that means. Take that as you will. For maintenance, there were some fixes in relation to how blood and dirt appear, for example, the damage that may appear after a firearm explodes, And for music, we actually got some new music in the Trotsky region, which is really cool. And there was a village that received a different musical theme to kind of match the setting there. To quickly go over a few categories, Mutt, Henry's dog, received some fixes. There were some minor performance updates in relation to things like visual stuttering. Photo mode received some minor updates, and major problems on specific consoles, that is on PS5, Xbox, and PC, were supposedly remedied. Some of these problems included things like audio issues on PS5, which we talked about before, and blurry textures on Xbox specifically. We also got fixes in the categories of random events, reputation, and shops. And again, most of this stuff is just very minor. In terms of the skills and XP category though, there was some rebalancing that took place in relation to the amount of XP that was gained for things like thievery, stealth, and horse riding, which is interesting because maybe these categories gave too much XP before, I'm not sure, but I say that because these are the categories that I believe I have the highest current levels in right now. So that is kind of interesting. The patch notes also state though that melee weapon skills will be slightly slower, and there were a lot of fixes in relation to specific perks and buffs. Again, a lot of rebalancing here. For stealth, we got, quote, new clothing and equipment specifically supporting stealth gameplay and rebalancing stealth stats as well. And as a player who likes to use stealth when I can, this sounds absolutely awesome. I'd be curious to explore what this means in the context of the game more, but in relation to things like takedowns, we also got some interesting changes here, like NPCs now scream when they're being stealth killed, which, is that really necessary every time? I'm not sure, but stealth kills do have better animations, and stealth kills are now more likely to fail, which is another one that I'm not sure how I feel about yet. Moving on though, we have better tutorials and UI fixes, and in terms of visuals, the flickering problems that some players have reported before should now be fixed. And finally, for the last category, which is labeled as miscellaneous, we got some just random but interesting updates here. For example, we now have improved lip sync across the game. We have improved descriptions for items throughout the entirety of the game, which is really nice. We have improved physics, and we now have the ability to sprint while drunk, which I'm sure will definitely result in some misadventures. But all in all, I have to say that this patch is absolutely enormous. It seems to fix the vast majority of major issues that players had been complaining about over the last few weeks, and with the extensive rebalancing and addition of the barber feature, KCD2 definitely seems to be getting even better. But yeah, that is a quick breakdown of the newest Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 patch for March of 2025. But what are your thoughts on all of the fixes and improvements? Have you still noticed any major gameplay bugs following the patch? Have you taken advantage of the new barber feature? And have you been able to finish the Kuttenberg tournament? Shout out down in the comments below and let me know what you're thinking. And if you enjoyed the video today, consider subscribing. But anyhow, thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next level.
What the fuck are you doing to him? No chance!